Hello and welcome to Leaders Who Last. This is our interview series where we get to explore burnout in the hellscape that is 2025. I'm Elena Joy, your host. My pronouns are she, her. My visual description is that I'm a short white woman with silver curly hair and a big smile. I'm so glad you're here with us today because one of the coolest people I know is here with us, and we're going to do something fun and exciting. But first of all, here is Vera Minot. She is the co owner and creative director of Southwest Solutions, basically the coolest swag company I've ever come across. And she's joining us today so that we can talk about how do HR leaders use their vendors in the very best way, leverage them to help prevent their burnout instead of adding to their load. Welcome to the show, Vera.
Thank you so much. My pronouns are she, they, and I am too deep in to figure out how to put them by my name since I haven't done this before. And the only description of me that I will give for folks who need it is that my hair looks like the flame emoji. So I am very happy to be here. I love chatting with you about nearly anything, but this is definitely a topic that I'm pretty pretty passionate about. So
Yes, it's so perfect. And I'm so glad we get to have this convo during Pride Month, although we would have this convo anytime. Please, let's be real. So, audience, we're going to start a little differently today. So, one of the main things that I teach my clients is skills within the realm of strategic vulnerability. So, this is how we can connect really authentically without oversharing or feeling awkward or possibly even causing harm because we're in a power imbalance with our team. And we ask them a question like, share the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you. That doesn't feel great. And so in my newsletter series, I always include a strategic vulnerability question and explain why it is safe, but also allows for good, authentic connection. And then I share my answer and I hope to hear yours. And I think we're going to start off this interview series from now on with one of those questions. And Vera has one that we've done together long time ago, and she still uses it today. So I thought it was a perfect one for us to kick off this convo. So this question is, you answer, what do you love? What do you loathe? What do you suck at? What is your superpower? So it's LLSS. And so I'll go first, and then I'm so excited to hear from Vera. So I love fly fishing, and I can't wait to do a ton of it this summer. I loathe feeling trapped indoors because I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, and this is basically our winter when we are fully trapped inside. And to go out requires a lot of preparation. And we're just at the beginning of it, and I can feel that anxiety starting. It's not fun. What do I suck at? I suck at getting back to people in the time that they want me to get back to them in. I suck at those social cues of what's urgent and what's not. So I'm trying to get better at that. And my superpower would definitely be connecting. That is what I love and what I'm good at. And I leverage that in all parts of my life. All right. So hopefully that's a good example of how you learn something more about me than if we had just asked, tell us about yourself. It's a little more deep, a little more authentic, but I was in full control over what I shared. So I made sure I didn't overshare. Right. All right, Vera, let us know. What do you loathe? What do you love? What do you suck at? What is your superpower?
okay, let's see. I love birds. I love watching birds. I have become one of those bird watching millennials who had to add a line item in their budget for bird seed. For real. I loathe I loathe incomplete communication in business. Like I don't want to have to do the follow-up emails to like, hey, excuse me, I asked like 4 questions and you answered one. Can I get the
Yes.
other answers that I already asked you? Okay, so that the loathe for sure. That I'm probably guilty of. I mean, pot kettle, like I've probably definitely done that, but I do still loathe it. I really suck at small talk. It is, I actually think genuinely my worst skill. And I need to try and remember this so that next time I play this game, that is the answer I come back to. My ADHD definitely sets me up for a new fun adventure every time I try and answer these questions because I can't ever remember what I've answered before. And it's like when I'm hungry and I try and think of what I want to eat, I can't remember anything I've ever eaten before in my life. So I'm like, what do I suck at? God, I don't know. Who am I even? I can't remember right now. So small talk for sure. And my superpower is, I think the broadest term is empathy, but that feels a little trite. But I really think what I'm best at is putting myself in the shoes of my clients and their audiences, and then translating that specific brand of empathy through the language of promotional products. It's a really specific superpower, but I am weirdly good at it. And that is what helps me make memorable merch for my business. So
It
I like,
absolutely is your superpower. And recently, in different classes that I've had last week, we were talking about non binary thinking and how it really is like the root of empathy, because the ability to say, okay, your reality is not my reality, as if you're working with a client, right? I don't work in your business and I don't really know your clientele. But the more I can connect with you, the more I can understand it, the more I can put myself in your shoes and in the shoes of your clientele or your employees. And that's going to make what I do for you more effective. So, yes, your empathy is absolutely a superpower. Faux show. So, let's get right into that. So, I mentioned earlier that Vera has done that love, loathe, sex superpower with some new conversations and new people. Tell us about that, Vera. How have you used that tool?
so I've primarily used that tool, I think mostly when I've been the vendor, because I think that, so with my clients, I really should play it with my vendors as well. I feel like I'm a walking double standard right now. I'm realizing live on air. But when I'm the vendor, I feel like vendors are so often reduced down to just the deliverables of whatever their business is. It's
Mm,
so easy to just forget that the person that you're working with, that vendor, is a human being. And when we humans understand each other even just a little bit more, or when we have an appreciation for the wider picture of them as a human, it makes working with them not only more pleasant, but like more effective. So the times that I've deployed that is when I feel like I am a vendor who is being reduced to just a transactional relationship, and I want to change
mm.
that. It has worked so phenomenally. In fact, like the first time I did it, the person responded. She was like, "You know what? That was amazing. That was genuinely, I can't believe I forgot to tell you, EJTA. I definitely should have said something." She was like, "That was amazing. It's so easy to forget to be a human being in business." And that just brought me back to being a human and what's important. And I love that. And thank you. And I was like, wow, what a gift. Even if this relationship doesn't go anywhere in a business capacity, like I feel like we just shared something special and it gave me hope.
It's so critical to literally preventing burnout. If we're showing up to sales call after sales call, right? If we're pushing ourselves as a consultant or a vendor, or if we're trying to solve problems for our company as an HR leader, we're showing up to all these meetings, talk about draining, and imagine if we had a device where we could incorporate authentic connection in each one of those meetings and really return to that humanity that you were talking about. That is not draining. In fact, it's filling for
Right.
so many people. Now, I do think one of the things we wanted to talk about was for HR leaders to fully leverage their vendors, it's important for them to know what their strengths are and where they need extra help, because those are going to be the vendors that you're going to want to have a much more human relationship with. So, for example, I talked to an HR leader yesterday and he was like, yeah, there's two kinds of HR leaders. I don't think it's that subjective, but it's an interesting point for the conversation that there's an HR leader that lends towards the tech, towards the background, towards the HRIS and the payroll and right, kind of the background tech stuff, the data. And then you've got the HR person who's more extroverted, who needs to really connect with the employees in order to feel fulfilled with their job. But that might be really draining for the first person and vice versa. And so knowing which HR leader you are, knowing what fills you and what drains you, and then finding the right vendors to help you with what drains you. It's a critical component, I think, for these poor HR leaders. What do you think, Vera?
Yeah, I completely agree. When I think about what do I do with the knowledge of the many things that I suck at, as a business leader, that data really just informs who do I need to hire or who do I need to sub something out to? What do I need to look for in a partner of any kind? And it's so helpful because I can then, when I'm talking to whether it's a client or a vendor or an assistant who I might be trying to hire to help me fill the gaps, I can speak openly and honestly about what those weaknesses of mine are and suss out in the interview stage, right? Because I think that everybody should probably interview their vendors as well
Yeah.
as people they're trying to hire. But put it out on the table like, hey, this is something I'm really not great at. This is something that I'm looking for in a potential partner. And how amazing it would feel for that person to be like, oh my God, that's my superpower. Just imagining that moment in a completely hypothetical conversation just made me feel better. And that's how
Mhm.
powerful that could be if we're real with ourselves and then we communicate that to, the folks we're trying to partner with in business in one way or another.
And pursue success together. Absolutely. And it makes me realize, like, really, if we wanted to super simplify this, we could say, take that exercise, the love, loathe, suck superpower, and put it into your job. So, like, that HR leader could come to that vendor meeting, say, okay, I love the employee engagement and the well being. I'm so good at that. But I'm not great at the back end. And I loathe lack of communication, or when I ask you 4 questions, but you only answer 1 back. And what I suck at is whatever, right? And my superpower is, and now that you've laid that out on the table, that vendor's gonna be like, "Holy crap, this is a real conversation." And you've given them permission to respond in kind. So it becomes not I gotta convince you that I'm the best vendor ever for this particular job. It becomes, "Oh, you're a human and I'm a human, and we're gonna see if we can actually help each other."
Yeah, for sure. Although I would advocate for doing 2 versions. I'm imagining these like Punnett squares, like love, loathe, suck, superpower. Like Punnett square 1 is the human stuff because
Ooh,
I don't want to skip
mhm.
that because I
Yeah,
think
true.
everybody gets stuck in this just business, and then everybody is still it's still transactional. Even if you have these fun little tidbits about the things they're best at in their jobs, you still don't those aren't the seeds of partnership. Both together, the human answers and the work human answers are absolutely the seeds of partnership.
Okay, so I think we've established a few things. One is HR leaders and vendors need to know what they're great at and where their weaknesses are and not be ashamed of them. And they need to be able to go into that conversation willing to connect with the human first and then connect with the vendor that is the human secondary.
Yeah, and I think what's also important is everybody who is interviewing a potential vendor, feel free to take the reins of the conversation. I have felt myself on countless
Mm,
occasions, and I'm over it, right? I'm not going to be doing this anymore. I have a ton of meetings with my own vendors. They're like, we want to have a Zoom with you, blah, 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 whatever. If I don't take the reins, they're just going to give me their same rote speech, just blah, 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 whatever it is. I don't get a feel for what is really happening. Who's the person I'm really working with? What do I, how do I need to catalog this information in my brain in a way that is meaningful? Because what they're saying is probably information I could find on their website or on a downloadable resource. So if I like my approach now is, you know what? Sorry to the vendor if they like had this whole song and dance prepared, but I have some questions. These are the
mhm,
questions that matter to me. Like, how are you going to let me down? Because I know you're
mhm,
going to, because nobody's perfect. There comes a point where everybody messes up. What do you suspect your weak link is? How are you going to let me down? And then tell me, what do you do the rest of the time to make sure that's not going to become a pattern? Because I
mhm.
have the forgiveness for the mess ups as long as I know that there's efforts being made to not have those mess ups happen all the time. So tell me about that. Tell me, how do you handle conflict conversations? What about when I'm mad at you? What about when I am not serving you well? Can you bring me that information? Like, business relationships are just like any other relationship, except for that none of us, I don't know who we're waiting to grant us the permission to have these types of real couples therapy conversations.
I
Well,
tell you what, I think what it is that these HR leaders are, I think most of us as an adults, we're being sold to all the
right.
time, right?
Totally.
And so it feels like if we're actually going to get on a Zoom call or a meeting with a vendor, I think our default mode is, okay, I got to prepare to be sold to. And we just
Totally.
we both, the vendor and the leader, goes into that conversation with the sales in priority rather than the connection in priority. And responding to what you just said, all of my clients would know that what you're doing right there, let's radically acknowledge reality. What are we going to do when one of us screws up? Because it's going to happen because no one is perfect, right? That is self awareness on steroids. And if you're a person who prioritizes that, and if you're in my ecosystem, you probably are. If you have a vendor who can't engage in that
That's data
conversation,
you need to know
that is data you
to
need to
move
know.
forward with maybe a different path.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I think where
Yeah.
this gets a little tough for me is when you engage with vendors who say you're talking to a payroll company and they have their outside salespeople, and those are not the people you're going to end up talking with on the day
Ooh.
to day. I have no idea how to navigate that. I know that I run into that as a customer all the time because I work with vendors that are really large, and the boots on the ground customer service people who I'm certain somebody among them is the gem that I need to talk to and have a relationship with. I don't know how to find them. That's not who, that's not how the structure is built. And I literally do not have an answer besides, in my case, I try and meet the higher ups when I'm at industry conferences and find out from them who's the gem. Who is it? Who do I need to be talking to? Which is exhausting.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from you is that vendors who are in that situation where they're selling a product that they're not providing the customer service for, the follow-up customer service, they need to go into the conversation with you knowing who the gem is. Like, they need to do their footwork because that makes them stand out, right? For them to
Right.
be able to say, "Yes, we're this massive company, and for support, you're not gonna be calling me, you're gonna be calling this 800 line. Here's the extension you press to get the
Right.
best customer service possible."
Here's the pro tips. Here's what to
Mhm.
say to be heard. That would, oh my God, any salesperson who, think about this like you're constantly being sold to feeling, which we're all familiar with. If I had that salesperson be like, look, I'm here to help you. Like, here's the pro tip. Here's how to access the good from the customer service team because it's not me. Sorry. I would be like, wow, this person, that was great. That was really helpful. Wow, I'm impressed. Like, that would help me lower my guard and actually
Mhm.
hear what else they have to say.
And lower the anxiety about the financial commitment you're about to make.
Totally. Yeah.
I love that. Tell me about if an HR leader of Acme Chemical Company called you and said, "Okay, we need to set up a meeting. We're shopping for a promotional product vendor." You've already said if they can show up and be prepared to take the reins, that is incredibly helpful. Is there anything else that you can see from that initial meeting? That's a leader I want to work with. I would be really successful working with that leader.
If they're not taking the reins, I take my own reins. I
Mhm.
ask them very similar questions to the questions that I would ask a vendor, which is like, what are ways, I guess they're like a little flip-flopped, but what are ways that prior vendors have let you down?
Mhm.
What are the communication styles and traits that are important to you? Is it the speed that's important? Is it the thought and the full attention? Help me never irritate you. Tell me what would just chap your bum, like, so that I can try to never do that.
Yeah.
And here are the things that I need, like, here are the things that I need out of a
Yeah.
partnership to be best at what I do. And how does that land for you? Like, where do we anticipate there being friction? So those are the questions that I would ask a potential new client. And if
Mhm.
they can't answer those things, I know I'm in for a really rough ride. And that
Mhm.
helps me calibrate, okay, this relationship is probably going to or probably should stay transactional. And maybe that's fine and maybe that's not fine. Maybe I don't have room on my books for that. Maybe I can give that to my new guy.
Yeah.
But it's all data,
Yeah. It's
and
all
you
data.
have to collect the data to then make the right decision based on the data.
And if you're avoiding the data because you're afraid you're going to be sold to, then that's data as well. Like you
Yeah.
need to know that about yourself as well. Yeah.
Also, y'all, I'm a salesperson. I, I guess technically, like I'm a client-facing person in my day-to-day. I don't ever call myself a salesperson because it doesn't feel like what I do. It's not my style. But so I literally cannot envision this happening to me. But if somebody ever stopped me in a meeting and was like, I'm feeling types of ways about what I'm perceiving as salesiness. And I'm realizing I'm having a really hard time actually hearing what you're saying because my walls are up so high because I just can't stand this feeling. Can we just pause for a minute? Can we just stop for a minute and like reset? I don't know what, talk about something else. Tell me something about you as a human. I'll tell you something about me as a human. I would be just floored and
Mm.
delighted to be able to like, especially me, because I'm not trying to be that way. So if that ever happened, I'd
Mhm.
be like, God bless, what a gift that you've just given me to help us get back into alignment together. And I didn't even know we were out of alignment. You
Oh
can't fix
my
what you don't
gosh.
know.
Audience, do you see why this is such a great conversation with Vera and why you would want to work with someone like Vera? Because when those kinds of things are valued, it's not draining. I don't know another way to say it. Like it doesn't take willpower to get through that conversation. You don't have to steel yourself before that call with that person. You can actually look forward to it because you're going to connect and you're going to be a real human for maybe the 1/2 hour out of your entire day.
Yeah.
So powerful. One other question I wanted to talk about for HR leaders and their vendors. I remember the first interview I did in this series was with Temba Dayton. He provides benefits and medical benefits and such for companies. And he knew so clearly, he was like, I know that if it's a company between this many employees and this many employees in these states, I'm not only going to save them money, I'm going to reduce their workload because of the specifics. He knew that. And so, do you think it's valuable for HR leaders to look for vendors who, I don't know, are so specific, can provide such a specific service to that HR leader that it will save them money, it will take work off their plate? Should HR leaders be looking for a match like that, or do you think that's too specific?
No, I think they absolutely should be looking for a match like that. I think,
So, help me extrapolate. Like, what would that be for you? Because I only have that one example.
gosh, I don't know if I have an extrapolation that works for everybody, but I have the extrapolation example that I'm living right now, which is that I'm searching what feels like from here to Mars for the perfect software integration partner because I have a really unique setup and there's a lot of software integration partners, a lot, and they all have very lovely marketing, right? Everything is so squeaky clean and perfect sounding. And I don't know how to pick from all of that. And so I'm
Does
like,
that sound familiar to all of us? That sounds
yeah.
familiar. Yes.
I'm like scheduling meeting after meeting and just the dread builds with every subsequent meeting where I'm like, God, that wasn't it. I want it to feel like, boom, that's it. So I think the more specific vendor, like the more specific you look for, and for from the vendor side, the more specific you can be in terms of communicating what you're best at. I think that's best for everybody. I don't think it's always possible, but
Yeah. Yeah. But I think there really is something to being so clear and specific about who you can serve to the best of your ability. And if
yeah.
there's other clients as well, awesome. But really being able to market yourself as this is who I serve the best. If you're
And
that person, let's talk.
yeah, and maybe I feel like I'm on a constant quest to expand the conversation just past just the deliverables. Like insurance, there comes a point where insurance is insurance. There's more about what somebody, you said their name was Temba. There's more about what Temba's offering than just the price. It's
Oh, so much.
probably a damn joy to work with them. And so if vendors are in a situation where they can't really be very specific, I have a bit of a hard time being specific for my business.
Good
We
point.
do so much.
Yeah.
But what I know that we are good at is outside of the realm of just the deliverable itself. It's not just the promo product. It's the experience of working with us. It's the human moment. So I think from the HR leader's side, knowing, hey, yeah, I want to burn the building down when I call and you take 4 days to call me back. That just makes me crazy. And I just need somebody who's going to get me the deliverable that I need, that product, the whatever. But I really just need them to not take 4 days to call me back because I know that makes me murderous.
Mm.
Being specific in that way is amazing because if somebody said that to me, I'd be like, ooh, honey, I'm notoriously bad at calling people back same day. That's a thing I actually suck at. So glad you said it. If that's not a deal breaker and we can meet in the middle somehow to align our expectations, then we can move this forward. But if that's your be all end all, that's amazing. And I wish you the best of luck in your continued search for another vendor because it's probably not me.
All of this is making me think about my recent conversations with leaders around AI and how, with the rise of AI, what we are innately craving is humanity, is the messy, is the weird, is the human. And I'm beginning to realize, like, if I were an HR leader, one of the first things I'd be looking for in a vendor is the humanity. Do they have the emotional intelligence to connect with me as a human, or are they going to avoid that? Right? That would probably be one of my first ones because I'm gonna more and more, the more AI starts to impact our lives, more and more I'm going to crave that human connection. I'm gonna crave being seen as a human and being able to relate to a human. And I really think that's gonna be an edge for the vendors and the leaders who can get there.
I completely agree. I think that sometimes it's okay if you have a vendor that the connection's not there, but they provide you the service and it's fine. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Yes,
It doesn't need to be like, huh, with
totally.
every single vendor, but we should be being real with ourselves, not just accepting that as the norm. Because
Mhm.
there are plenty of vendors, and now this is me with my vendor hat on. When people just write me off as the transactional whoever who sometimes takes 4 days to call back, and that's annoying, that leaves a lot on the table in terms of what the partnership could be. Like, my clients would be better served by me if we could align into a real partnership state. That's not something all of them want. It's not something that I want with all of them. But I think that business leaders, HR leaders, really anybody who's ever going to be working with a vendor should sit down and think and potentially ask, right? I think that's a theme of this conversation. Just say the words, just ask, what am I okay with this being just transactional? What could I possibly be leaving on the table if I leave it in that bucket in my mind? And this is the ask to the vendor. What does your most beautiful partnership with your most aligned client, what does that look like? What's the like special treatment look like? Because I promise you, it doesn't necessarily have to do with the money spend. Sometimes it's just because the people are super aligned and have done the work to iron out all the little wrinkles in human communication.
Yeah. Do you think I'm try would you be willing to share a relationship that you might have with an HR leader or another leader over people and things, operations, whomever, that is that fully maximized relationship? Like it is aligned and you've put in the time to create that connection, and that leader is getting everything out of you that is helping them to be a success. Can you think of one like that? You don't have
I
to use names.
I only have a partial example of that because there's an interesting pattern. The clients I have who I have that beautiful, cool alignment with, interestingly, they are rarely in HR. So I don't know what the pattern is. I don't know what's happening. I don't know if it's maybe it's me, right? I don't know. I do have one HR group that I work with. It's a healthcare company, and it's a blast. Like, we give each other space to be normal people. When they present me a dream idea, they don't really communicate a whole lot of the details. So there's a little bit of telepathy going on, which I feel like is something that you can do when there's alignment, right? Like, the telepathy skills are better in both directions when there's good alignment there. And so working with them is joyful. I get an email from Rachel and I'm like, girl, I'm excited to hear from you. And she's like, hey, I don't know Rachel. Not really. But I smile when I see that she's emailed me. I prioritize getting back to her faster. I put more effort into my deliverables for her because she matters to me, because we're aligned. And that's really cool. And I wish I knew why there's that interesting pattern among the people who I have that connection with, and a few of them are in HR.
Yeah, honestly, just spitting in the breeze here, but I think that there's something to be said for HR probably sees the most vendors. Other than like operations and building services, they probably see the most vendors. And they are probably stuck in that I sales mode. It's ick. It is ick. And
Yeah.
so let's move out of ick so that you can be the HR leader that can connect and get the very best resources from someone like Vera.
Do you think, I wonder if this could be true too, even the compliance focused HR people, the back of the house ones that really would rather not do the peopling, there's still a tremendous amount of peopling
Yes,
that they do, that they have to do. Is there
so
like
much.
a, how does one deal with people fatigue and accomplish the things you and I have been talking about? Because when I have people fatigue, I do reach a point where I'm like, every interaction I have until my battery fills back up, every single one, my mother, my wife, whoever, it's transactional. I just can't dedicate a single more spoon to this. Maybe that's what's happening,
It
which
very much could be.
is
Yes.
probably a sign of their burnout, and they should probably call you. But
Yeah, true.
yes.
Yes, but I think you're right. I think there is something to each one of us knowing our people connection battery and knowing what's coming up in your week or your month and prioritizing the meetings that are people connection. And then if there's other things that you can do via email that is not so much peopling or text or whatever it is, like being really intentional with where you're putting your spoons, essentially.
Yeah. I just thinking about this for basically the first time, I also suspect that even somebody who's in that people fatigue space, who's not ready to have a heart first human connection with a vendor or whatever, I think they can still take something out of the stuff we've talked about today in terms of like, when you communicate transactionally with a vendor or a potential vendor, especially from that fatigue space, they can be sharing things like, these are my priorities. It's
Mm.
important to me that you do XYZ or do not do XYZ. Save future you the time of having to correct a vendor who you didn't communicate openly with on the front end by giving them the information of, hey, if you send this back to me, it's going to make me sad inside. Okay. There's not enough cheese in the world to help bring me back from that space. So help a sister out and just be real with me. If you can't do
Mhm.
it, what I need, just tell me. That's fine. Look out
And
that.
truly, I think that's actually some of the beauty of the burnout that so many of us are experiencing, because it is definitely a new brand. It is not the burnout of 2020. It is not the burnout of going to school and being high achieving and that. Like the burnout of 2025 is very specific and unique. And I think that there's always beauty. There's always two sides of a coin, right? And I really think that the beauty in today's burnout is that it pushes us to a point where if we leverage it the right way, we will communicate so clearly and, for lack of a better word, we won't give an F about anything else. The priority is to just, these are my needs, these are my priorities. I don't have the capacity to deal with anything more. Can you do that or no? And I think That could be brusque and that could feel rude, but also that could be a gift. There's no agenda, there's no hidden text between lines. It's just, this is me, this is what I need. You're not a bad person if you can't provide it, but I need to know.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing, I think.
Yeah. And I think it's up to the vendor at that point, obviously, to be direct in their communication back.
Yes.
I feel like this is an out loud, real time self call out. But if I received that type of communication from a customer who I've been having I want to connect with as a person because I know I can serve them better and more intuitively if I could just connect with them and they're resistant for reasons that are probably very legit. I think that at that point, what I should probably do is let them know I got you or I don't got you. One day I would love to connect with you as a person. Here's why. Here's what that difference could mean. Here's what us being more intuitively aligned, here's what that could bring to the table for you and the problems that could help solve for you. Let me know if you're ever in the space to make that connection.
Okay, because we're having fun, and if you have the time, I'd love to ask you one more like business question because I think you have a unique perspective on this. The hard sciences people, the engineers, right? When they're looking for vendors, if you were going after one of those, and we're laughing because Vera's wife, Cody, is an engineer in all the ways, in her brain, in her job, in everything. So if Cody had to go find a promotional products person, how would you be able to connect with someone who's not so intuitively into the emotions necessarily? Like that word alignment, like that emotional alignment or
Yeah.
intuitive alignment, that might not ring true for someone in engineering or some of the other sciences.
Oh, yeah.
So, do you have any thoughts on how you'd approach that?
I know. Yes, I, I feel like I should warn the watchers of this video that I very lovingly love giving engineers a hard time because they're very special. And I am married to one. And so I feel like, and not in spite of her engineeriness, right? Like I love
Mhm.
her exactly as she is. But I do feel like it gives me the right to give them a hard time. But I don't know if I have a solid answer for that, except for I don't compromise on who I am when her engineering colleagues call me. And I am certain that they're like, what the? That was the most, that was unlike every other vendor conversation I ever have.
Boom.
Holy moly. That lady was spicy. That's probably what's happening in their head. And I'm fine with that. I
Yes.
I still think they can probably answer some of the harder science things that I want to know. What are the things that are most important to you and your company? Is it the communication style? Is it the price? Is it the aesthetic? Give me your priorities and I can work with that. And by the way, I try to have fun doing business and be a real person, so I look forward to getting to know you or not, whatever.
Yes. And I have found that the right ones, like, they don't compromise themselves either. They're
Right.
really like, "All right, I don't get you at all, but this is fun.
Exactly.
So, let's just keep going with this."
100%. And that's beautiful. I That is one of my favorite things when my clients and we're not the same. We're super different in every single way. And none of us is compromising and we're all having a great time. And it's compromising on who we are. There's
Mhm.
compromise in the like
Yeah. Yeah.
working with another human thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a blast for me because there's like that mutual respect and solid boundaries and stuff.
Mhm.
Whether
Mhm.
they know that in their top of mind or not, those things are present. If those things are not present and I can feel that, right? If the mutual respect isn't there or the boundaries aren't present, even if they don't have the words for that because they're a hard science person and not a soft science person, that's data for me to then determine whether I want to continue the relationship in this
Mhm.
way.
Alright, so it is sounding like both HR leaders and vendors need to be radically aware of themselves and where they produce their best work and what they need to produce their best work. And they need to be ready to go into that conversation and put a foot down that this is not a salesy time. We're going to connect human to human and see if we can work this out, but you're not going to sell to me and I'm not going to sell to you. Let's just figure this out. And I think that there's also that remembering that you don't have to compromise who you are. I think it's so adjacent to the queer conversation of when we hide ourselves, not only are we draining ourselves because we have to perform, and that performance takes way more capacity than being real. And there's a willingness to, I want you to know who I am so that you can self select out.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I love that.
And where we live, that's really important. We
Yeah.
need people to self select out from the beginning. Because if we get into the relationship 3 weeks or 3 months or whatever, and then they find out I'm a lesbian and then there's drama, what a waste.
I
What a
mean,
waste.
I'm lucky because Tucson, that's
Mhm.
way less of a danger for me, but I want them to know who I am because I don't want them to look up 3 months in and realize, "Wow, I hate Vera's communication style," or I don't know, there's something that I've determined that I am not okay with. If I could have been upfront about what I bring to the table and they could have said goodbye, back then, I'm not putting the reputation of my company on the line. So,
Yeah.
sometimes it's a personal safety thing, sometimes it's a business safety and reputation thing. I
Yes.
I really think there's probably not a single use case where you could argue that it's not the right call to be transparent in those ways up front, to let people self-select out.
It is hard to let that default, like the business mask comes up and that persona. And it's almost like it can feel like a protection method, right? Like you don't know the real me. And so if you're mean to me, it's not actually me. And I can brush that off, right? Or if you're rude to me or whatever it is. But man, that barrier can prevent so much coolness and so much success. It's a struggle. I know I have to before every single call, I have to remind myself to not go into that high fake voice and that fake smile and all the stuff, right? I have to be like, "All right, my head's gonna bob, and that's okay because that's who I am."
Right? I'm gonna
Yeah.
sit here and fidget because that
Uh-huh.
is what's happening with my body.
Right? And if I try to stop it, then that's gonna take capacity in my brain that I could
Yes.
be using to serve you.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I definitely
What?
I was just gonna say, I think I have some privilege in that there is nobody who can fire me, right? My clients
Mm,
can fire me, but
mm.
I don't have bosses who can fire me. It's probably a part 2 conversation down the road of like, how do you deal with all these cool insights and things to think about within the context of a corporate hierarchy where not everybody above you necessarily vibes with with this approach, and maybe somebody is trying to hold you accountable to that mask because they have not undone that within themselves, and how do you not burn out then?
Ooh,
So, part 2
yeah. Part
later.
2 for sure. For
That'd be
sure.
cool.
All right, this is officially the longest interview that we've done in this series, and I knew it would be, and it's been an absolute blast. And we will wrap it up with our last question that we ask every single time. At Latitude, we feel that joy is not just an outcome, but a burnout prevention and intervention strategy. So we ask all of our guests about how you're accessing joy these days. I'll go first. I would say it is in my art. It is in my art that is hanging on the wall because I love it. It took way too long to get up, but it's up and it's in the right place and it's gorgeous. And it happens to be done by Vera's engineer artist wife, Cody. And I love it.
It looks phenomenal, and I think I would think that even if I weren't madly in love with the person who painted it. It does
I
look
get
so good.
compliments every single call I get on. Like
Oh,
it's the first they say, "Oh my gosh, you're here." And then they say, "Oh my gosh, your art."
that's so cool.
It really is. It really is. Vera, how are you accessing joy these days?
How am I accessing joy these days? There's currently some headlines going across that are really joyful to me. This has been a very fun first 6 days of Pride Month, and I don't normally like Pride Month. There's that. I am looking forward to monsoon season because one of my favorite joyful activities, it's twofold, but they both have to do with monsoon. A, it's lying on the dirt, letting the rain hit me in the face. Just like that is the most magic ever. And it's so joyful that it like fills up the joy battery for like weeks. And the other thing is pulling weeds in saturated rain. Mm. Oh my God, love it so much. It's like everything that I don't know, like everything that's uncertain in my life goes away in that moment because of the
Mhm.
certainty of pulling that weed. ragweed that makes me suffer out of the ground, and it's not even that hard. Ugh, I'm like, I'm a giantess of productivity and connected to Mother Nature. It's the best joy.
And you get to see the change that you
Yes,
made then. It's
I can't wait.
immediate gratification. It's a beautiful thing.
I can't wait.
Vera, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. This has been joyful for me.
Total pleasure.
All right, audience. I can't wait to see you back next week. We are going to be chatting with Melissa Cordero, who is an incredible activist. She is a veteran, she's queer, and she is fighting for those veterans, especially for the ones that are being threatened with deportation or getting their health care taken away. It is a time, and I'm so excited to be able to chat with her. All right. Thank you. I can't wait to see you next time. Have a wonderful weekend, fam. Be good to yourselves. I appreciate you.
Bye.